Okay, everyone, welcome to B1033Lab2. Different from Lab 1, which is a virtual lab. Start from Lab 2, we're going to work on the actual electrical component devices. All right. So on the picture, you can see on the right hand side is on the the picture of the front door of the trainer, right? So I only have 4 devices on here as example. So we have a PB2 and PB4, which are the push buttons. All right. So if you flip the door, you look inside the other side of the door. Behind that, those are the actual wiring from the push button, right? So this one actually is the back side of PB2, and this one is the back side of PB4. So from this picture, you can see those 2 buttons, they have 2 contacts, right? So this will be one contact, this will be the other one, right? Also notice they have numbers on the terminal, right? One is 1 and 2, the other one is 3 and 4, right? We talk about a little bit from the lab 1. We're gonna need to understand more from this lab. So exactly the same setup. You can see here two sets of contacts for PB4, right? So that's just the button setup. And then if you look at on the corner on here, this one match the SS1. That's a selector switch. It's different from push button, and behind it, it also has 2 sets of contact, but different from the button. It's that 2 sets are the same type, 3 and 4, right? So that's the difference you can see on here. And with SS2, from the front panel, there's not much different from the SS1, right? But if you look at on the back of the door, so SS2 is more complicated. So first you can see there are 4 sets of contacts on there, right? You can see if you count the wires, there are 8 of them, right? 8 of them from the 4 sets of contact, and all the other 3 devices, they have 4 wires, right, from each device. So all the wires eventually will bundle together and route into the terminal inside the panel, right? So on the top you can see here, right? So we just talked about PB2, right? So that's the label. You can see here there's a slot, a block, right? So from 1 to 4, like that's the 4 wires. Actually, those 4 wires on here, eventually they're gonna connect into those terminals. Right. And then you can see on the SS1, if we can see here, SS1 is here. So you can see they have a block with 2 sets of contacts on here. Right. SS2, you can see here, there are more contacts on here. Right. Just give you a first impression. How do we find those devices on the trainer front door, and also on the back you can see that's all the physical contacts. And then inside the trainer panel, if we want to wire them, we don't wire directly on those terminals, we wire on those terminal blocks, right? They also have all the numbers to indicate the connections. So that's what we need to understand first. All right. Let me move to the. Okay, so over here is a little bit of review, right? So if you remember what we talked about from lab 1, it's good. If you don't, just a quick reminder, right? So there are 2 different type of contacts. One is normally closed, the other one is normally open. Normally closed, use 1 and 2 to indicate on the terminal block, and 3 and 4 indicate the normally open. Just like the push buttons from PB1 to PB6, we call that double pole, double throw. So the top set, you can see that's indicated is a normally closed type, and the bottom one is NO type. So that's why it's 1 and 2 on top, 3 and 4 at the bottom. So the PB7 on the trainer is a special configuration from 1 to 6. It only has 1 pole, right? So that's why you can see here single pole, single throw, which is normally closed, right? It could be normally open, but in this case it's normally closed. We use as a stop button. So that's why we have 1 and 2 on that, right? So the other case is that if there are more than one set of same type of contacts, use one more digit to indicate the set number. So in this case, the example is the E-stop. You will see the picture on the next slide. E-stop has double pole. You can see here double pole, single throw, because it only has the normally closed type of contact, right? So that's why you see use 1 and 2 to indicate that. But also because it has two different sets, right? So double pole, right? So that's why we need to use another digit in front of that. So the top one will be the first set. So that's why 11, 12. The second set we use 21, 22 to indicate that. And also because E-stop is a maintained push button, it's different on the symbol on this part, right? So the momentary is just a straight line on here. So on the lecture, I will talk about more on the configurations. All right, so that's not my concern for this lab. All right, well, I will look at that in the talk about that on the lecture. All right, let's look at the next slide. Or over here, that's the picture I want to show you. So PB7 is a red button. Normally, red color indicates it's a stop button. Right? So that's the symbol. You can see that indicates it's a NC type. So over here is a illustration of the picture, right? So you can see the spring push the contact. They make a close contact in the normal situation, which is not pressed. So when you press down the button, you break that contact. You change to normally that change to open. So that's why we call normally closed, right? So if you don't touch it, don't activate, it's closed. And the opposite is normally open, right? So you can figure out, you can see symbol is different and the illustration is also different, right? Normally, in some situation, you can even physically switch the contact type. So normally, if you just like the illustration shows, right? You can see here, you flip the other way, you can change it to different types. All right. So our trainer, so from PB1 to PB6, we have two separate sets, right? So you can see here, right? That's one, the other one, right? So that's why you see here on top is normally closed. That's this side, this set on there, 1 and 2, right? And the bottom set is the normally open type of contact. We use 3 and 4 to indicate that, right? So this push button, the cap is activated on here. When you press down, both set double pole, right? They activate in the same time. So that's the setup for the on the trainer PB1 to PB6. All right. So let's look at next one. This is just a copy from Wikipedia with the definition of the emergency stop, right? You can read it when you have time. I don't have to read here in the video. So what I want to use this to illustrate that there are some type of push button is maintained type. The one I just showed you is momentary, right? It has a spring. But if you look at the illustration on this one, so some people call this rocker switch, right? So some of you may already maybe seen this type of switch before, right? So it has some mechanism built inside. Once you make the switch, it will stay that position until you flip that. Use your finger to flip the activator, right? So you can see here, if you flip this in this position, it's open, right? And when you press this down, right? So you can see here, you press this side, you make the contact close, right? So but when your finger release, it stays there, right? It stays closed, right? That's different from the one I just showed you from the previous slide, which has a spring will push back to the normal position, right? So that's the different, right? So that's why we call this type is maintained. And we have this type of push button on our trainer. We use that as the e-stop, emergency stop. Right, I already introduced this symbol on the previous slide. Right, so you can see here that this symbol, this part, basically indicate there's some sort of a latching. Right? You can see here, almost like correspond to this setup. Right, so it will stay in the position you switched, and then you flip the other way. Right, after. Right, so and the other thing you want to know about this e-stop is that from the button cap, you can see here there's a circular arrow on here, right? So that indicate after you press the button, it stays in, and if you want to release it, right, you have to rotate. You have to rotate in the clockwise to unlatch the button to return to the unactivated position, right? So that's what we're going to use on the trainer, right? So let's look at the next slide. With the selector switch, like I said, especially on the SS2, it's very complicated device. In Lab 2, we are not going to tackle with the SS2. It's more complicated. If you look at a simpler version, right? SS1 is a simpler version on this one, right? It has two sets of contact, same set, right? You can see here with 3 and 4, right? When the lever on this one flip on the left hand side, both of them are open. So that's why we use 3 and 4. But because we have two identical sets, so that's why we introduce another digit to indicate the set number. So we have 13, 14 as the first set, 23, 24 as the second set of the normally open type. Of course, if you flip that to the right hand side, both contacts will become closed, right? SS2, we will talk about that on Lab 3, not Lab 2, right? And with this lab, we're gonna work on a SS3 on the remote box, right? From outside, you can see here SS3 is almost identical with the SS1, SS2. It's the same thing, right? SS2 is a little bit different. You can see here it has 3 positions, but SS1 and SS3 only has 2 positions. And what's the difference between SS1 with the SS3 is that SS3 has 2 different types, right? At the top one is 1 and 2, right? Unlike the SS1, right? So that's why you see we only use 1 and 2, 1 digit to indicate the normally closed, and 3 and 4 indicating the normally open. So that's the selector switch we're going to work on with Lab 2. All right, let's look at the next slide. Okay, so one big part of the Lab 2 is that you're going to use the what we learned on the continuity check. On here, use the DMM to check the continuity on the meter, and then figure out the contacts of those devices. We call that run out because normally with the DMM you can hear the beeping sound, beep, to indicate the continuity, right? So yes, that's why some people talk about that use the run out to use that. All right. So what we're gonna do with the that part of activity is that there are 4 devices on a remote control box, right? So, but inside the terminal, you will see there's a blank blocks for the terminals. So I didn't give you all the labels, the device label and the numbers, and you need to figure out them by using the continuity check from the DMM meter. All right, I will talk about this is the majority part of this demo. All right, so I will come back talk about this after I finish the next slide. So the last part of the other part of this lab 2, is that I want you to learn other type of the switches. So we already learned push button. Strictly speaking, push button is also a switch. Also, we look at the selector switch, and now we'll look at different type. So there are two other types we installed on the trainer. One is called limit switch. So this type of switch normally installed on the machine to detect the moving part positions. So for example, if you have a slide, right? So this slide will have some mechanical we call flag or wand to push the this roller to indicate where it exactly is the this slide, right? So when this one being pushed down, and then that movement will transform inside the limit switch body, you will see the contact change positions. So in this particular one, we have two types. One is normally open, the other one is normally closed. Right. So notice here, right? There's a gap indicate it's a normally open. There's no gap on here to indicate it's a closed. But if you draw the normally open with the touching on the each other on the other side without the let me erase here. You can see here there's a gap, and there's no gap on here, right? So that's why they have a different name. So if you draw the symbol like this, they simply call normally open. But when you see the symbol like this, they touch each other on the other side, they call normally open, held, closed. That normally indicate when machine first started, this is being activated. Right? Indicate, for example, it's a home position, right? So that's a long story. We will talk about that when we get into the application, right? On the opposite is that normally closed, you need to make those contact close on the other side. But if you draw that with a gap, that indicate it's not normally, it's a normally closed type, but being held open. All right. So again, we will talk about those later, right? But normally, this is what you see on the machine control with limit switch. And the other type of switch is called reed switch. Again, I will explain more on the lecture. The one we have on here is just a very small one. You can see I can use my finger to push this plastic ring up and down. So that's what we use for called flow switch. For example, if you install this type of switch on top of a tank, so when the water level reaches high, that will push this ring up to here, and then the switch inside here, because the magnet inside of the ring will activate the switch, open or close. So in this way, you will find, okay, that's the water level is high or water tank is full. So that's the purpose of this type, right? Of course, you can have notice here there's only two wires, right? So this one actually is a normally open type, right? So when the ring is being pushed to the top, it will become closed, right? But if it's at the lower, it's open, right? We also have opposite of the opposite of the type. We also have a normally closed type on the other trainer with the live volt. Again, this is just an introduction with all the other type of switches. Right? When we work on the specific type of lab or applications, we'll talk about more. So now I just need to do this part of demo. I have a video, so we can look at how do we do that in the lab. All right, so I need to get the video first. Okay, over here. So let me talk about the setup here. So in the moment, you will see here inside the panel here. So this is the terminal block I was talking about. They are blank, right? There are 7 slots with nothing, no label, no number on that. Right? They actually, all the wires you can see here, all those blue wires, they connect into these 4 devices, right? Because some of them they have 2 sets, right? So that's why it has seven block but 4 different devices. Right? So in the lab, you will use this DMM. So use DMM to figure out the connections to the terminal block. It's like a game, right? Actually, it is a game. I want you to practice to understand normally open, normally closed, maintained. They are different, right? So to understand those concepts. So with the DMM, right? So right now you can see here, this is DMM I set up on the resistance reading, right? So depends on the type of the DMM. With this particular one, if you see steady 1, that indicate is open connection between the 2 probes, right? But if you see some readings around 0, right? Not necessarily 0. It should be a 0 point something like that. You will see that indicate it's a closed, very low resistance. That means it's a closed connection, right? I just want you to understand that one. If it shows 1 is open. Some of the meter use OL. I think that's a better indicator. So it stands for overload, right? So that means it's open, right? When I think it's the same meter, but you have to use the over here the continuity beeping. You will see that part. But anyway, all right. So that's what you need to pay attention, right? In current setting, in this setting on here, 1 indicate is a open connection between the probes, right? We have 2 of them. One is black, the other one is red, right? If you had the reading around 0, it's the one indicate is a closed contact. So I set up this because when I play the video, probably you won't be able to hear the beeping, right? And also notice that in the lab, if you have so many people around you, they also use the beeping. Sometimes it's really hard to figure out if that's the beeping from your meter or from your neighbor, right? So that's why I let you know 2 options, right? You can put into the low resistance reading, and by reading the visual readings on here, right, to figure out the connection. So let me play the video. All right. So over here, I want you to look at again over here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right, there's 7 blocks on here. I have them on here, right? So the reason we have 7 over here, you can see PB1 to PB6, double pole, double throw, right? So we have a PB5 and PB6. So both of them have 2 sets. So that's why they will occupy 2 times 2, 4 different slots on here, right? And then SS2 also has a double pole. That's the other set. So far we have 6 of them. And then PB7 is a red button, normally indicate that's a stop, right? So that's a single pole, single throw. It only has 1 set. So that's why together we have 7 sets, right? So that's started from here. So let's look at the video, continue on here. So that's the block on here, and then so we use the probe. So you can see here, right? One is red, one is black. Sometimes it's really hard to push them into the terminal, into the round hole side by side. Then over here you can see, you remember those. Each terminal has 4 round holes, right? The 4 round holes, they all connected, right? So for example, on this one, it has 1 wire going to the round hole on the top. You have another one, and then you have another one, you have another one, right? So it's 4 of them. So if it's hard to push in on the hole, on the round hole right beside the red probe, you can push to the next one, right? The one lower it, right? So that's where I push in. So notice here, once you push in on here, what you read on here, before we were reading number 1 on here. That indicates it's a open connection. But now you can see here, I'm reading 0, right? So that means these 2 probes right now, they are connected to each other, right? It's a closed connection, right? But we don't know, like, so we don't know which device making these two contact close. So that's why we need to push to activate those devices. It could be PB5, could be PB6, we don't know which one yet, or could be even PB7, right? So that's why we need to activate the device to find out, right? So you can see here. So you can see we press PB5 right now, nothing changed out here. So that means this first two sets, first set of contact is not controlled by PB5. That's what we learned, right? So far we learned this is a closed contact, but it's not from PB5, right? So then we're going on to the second one, right? So you can see here, right? So when we press the PB6, maybe I go back a little bit, right? So you can see here right now it's 1, right? No, back a little bit more, right? So it's 0 when finger pressed down, it's open, right? And do the second time, you can see here to make sure, right? So now we understand, we know this first set is controlled by PB6. We already know that, right? So back to the sheet, to the paper on the lab sheet, you should write down here PB6, right? And also you can see here 1 and 2 indicate is the close, 3 and 4 indicate is open. So we saw that was closed before we press. So that's why we need to use 1 and 2 to indicate on here, right? So that's the reason I need to write down on this number on here, right? So back to here, we continue on here. So now we're using the screwdriver to take the probe out, right? And then we're going to the second set, right? So you can see here we finished the first one. We already know PB6, 1 and 2, right? So now we're looking at the second set. So we don't know what type and which device control this one. But if we go on to here to look at here, and this one, you can see here it's different from the first one, right? When we push the probe into the terminal, we read 1, which indicate open, right? So that means this set of contact is a normally open type, but which device we don't know yet, right? So we need to activate the device to find out, right? So you can see here. So if you want do it the first one, right? PB5, right? You can see here nothing changed, right? So PB5 is not the one, PB6 not the one, right? And then we go on to the SS3. So now you can see here that change, right? So you can see that, do it again, right? As you can see that meter change. All right, so that's just replay the video. Okay, so based on that, right? So you should be able to figure out what we should write down here. So that's the device to control this one. So we need to write down SS3, right? And let's make sure again. All right, so I can move the video to here. So you can see that's the last one. So in the left position, you see here it's 1, right? It was 1, right? That means it's open, right? So if we go back here, so let me get my pencil on here. So actually it's the SS3, this one, 3 and 4. So that's why you need to write down 3 and 4 on here. All right. In the lab, you will get different trainers, right? All the trainers, they all have different type of setup on here. Not necessarily the first one is PB6. All right. You may get a totally different order, different types, right? So, but you need to practice to understand different concept we talk about, right? Either is momentary or maintained, right? Which is momentary on here, push button, maintain is the select switch. Or you can have the normally open or normally closed type of contact. They should use different. They should be used different numbers to indicate the type. All right. So this is the end of this demo.